John Henry Patterson has been commissioned by the Uganda Railway Committee in London to oversee the construction of a railway bridge over the Tsavo River. Tsavo is 132 miles from the coast of what is now Kenya, located in East Africa. Upon his arrival, Patterson had heard stories of man-eating lions attacking civilians and railway workers. There was one story of an Indian trader who was riding along with his donkey when a lion sprang out on him, knocking him and the donkey to the ground. The donkey was badly wounded, and the lion was just about to seize the trader when, in a twist of fate, his paws got tangled in a rope which had two tins that were originally strung across the donkey's neck. The rattle and clatter gave the lion such a fright that he bolted. Patterson did not immediately buy into these stories. John believed these men may have been victims of foul play by their colleagues, the motivation being financial gain. However, this theory was quickly dispelled. One night, an Indian worker was resting in his tent. There were also other men resting. The worker began hearing some suspicious noises outside. He soon realized they were being stalked by a lion. The lion quickly pounced and seized one of the men in the tent, who happened to be the closest to the opening. The lion grabbed the man by the throat and dragged him away. The next morning, Patterson investigated the area and concluded that a lion was the most likely culprit. It is the custom of a lion to tear the flesh as well as licking the skin off so as to get to the fresh blood. This lion was no different with his victims. Only the head was left intact, apart from the tusks from the lion which was used to carry him off. Patterson would soon realize that there were not one, but two man-eating lions. At first, they were not always successful in their attempts to carry off a victim. As time went on, they stopped at nothing and braved any danger to obtain their favorite food. Their methods became so unreal and their man-stalking so well-timed and certain of success that the workmen didn't believe they were real animals, but devils in lion shape. All the workers in Tsavo began building giant bomas around their camps in a bid to block the lions from attacking them. This would not always keep them out. The lions, as a rule, would only have one of them make the attack, while the other waited on the outside for their meal. However, as time went by, their tactics changed, and they would each enter a camp and seize a victim. To avoid the lions, a bunch of Indian workers would stay in a tree. One night the lions entered a campsite, and in fear, a bunch of workers descended for the tree. The extra weight actually made the tree fall to the ground, taking all of the terrified workers with them. Luckily for them, the lions had already seized a victim and were too busy devouring it to take notice of the fallen tree. Patterson decided it was time to make a trap in a bid to lure the lions and end their reign of terror. He constructed what is best described as a container, which was split into two parts. One part was for a worker to remain with a weapon. The other part was the trap for the lion. The worker would be safe on their side of the container. If the lion was to enter from the other side, his weight would trigger a spring, which would lead to a door closing, locking the lion in and giving the worker a clear shot to kill. A strong boma was built around the tent to deceive the lions, and one small entrance was made right at the entrance for the lions. Nearby, a hospital assistant was working at the Tsavo hospital. This hospital was protected by a good thick boma and looked rather secure. The assistant heard an odd noise and opened their tent to see what it was. They were horrified to see a lion standing only a few feet away, looking at him. The fence was not strong enough to keep this lion out. The lion made a spring towards him, which made the assistant jump back in fear. He fell back onto a box containing medical gear, which made a really loud smashing noise. The lion was startled for a moment, and this made him run off to another part of the camp. The lion moved to another tent, which unfortunately had 8 patients of the hospital inside. 2 of them were badly wounded, and a third was seized and dragged off. One night, Patterson was in his tent when he heard a loud thud. He knew exactly what he had heard. It was the sound of the trap door clattering down. Finally, Patterson thought to himself, we'll finally be rid of at least one of these beasts. There was one man inside the container, armed with a weapon. He was given orders to shoot once the lion had entered the trap. However, once the lion did enter the cage, the man was so terrified as the lion had begun trying to attack him and was gnawing at the cage bars. He could not muster the courage to fire at the beast. Eventually, he summoned the courage and started firing with a vengeance. However, instead of hitting their target, he succeeded in blowing away one of the cage bars, which created an opening which the lion took full advantage, disappearing into the night. In December 1898, the lions brought work on the bridge to a complete standstill for 3 weeks. Patterson had previously vowed to remove these lions from the area, and now that work had ceased, he needed to end this now. A few nights following the incident with the trap, Patterson is approached by a man who tells him that the lions are attacking a nearby campsite. Patterson grabs his rifle and rushes to the scene. Not far from the site, he notices the lions in a clearing, devouring a donkey which they had seized. As they approach the lions, the man with Patterson steps on a twig. This alerts the lions, who roar angrily and run away. Patterson inspects the lions' half-eaten meal and comes up with a plan. Noting there were no nearby trees, Patterson had a staging erected some 10 feet from the donkey in anticipation of the lions returning to finish their meal. At sundown, Patterson took his position, alone. As the night went on, Patterson hears the noise of a broken twig. However, instead of the lion approaching the half-eaten donkey as Patterson anticipated, the lion instead started hunting him. The lion slowly crept round and round Patterson's structure. Patterson expected the lion to rush the structure at any moment, something which he did not account for, meaning it would easily buckle under any pressure, sending him to the ground. But the lion never attacked. As time went on, Patterson fell to a light sleep. Suddenly, he is woken to a great smack in the head. Patterson feared that the lion has attempted a great jump in order to reach him. His fears are quickly dispelled when he realized he had actually been hit by an owl, mistaking him for a tree branch. He gathers his wits, and upon looking around, notices the outline of a lion. He quickly takes careful aim and pulls the trigger. The sound of the shot was followed by a magnificent roar, and the lion bolted. Roars turned to groans, groans turned to sighs, and eventually silence. The following day, the lion was found deceased. Although there was triumph amongst the camps of one of the lions being dealt with, there was still the issue of the other man-eater. Only a few nights later, the lone lion continued as usual, stalking human prey. However, it only made off with a goat this time. Again, Patterson followed and startled the lion during its meal, and it ran off. Like the first lion, he set up a structure near the unfinished meal and waited. The lion returned, and Patterson fired, injuring the lion as it ran off. The following day, they began searching for the lion. When walking through, he had heard an enormous growl. Patterson saw the lion glaring at him. Patterson fired, and instantly the lion began charging at him. Patterson fired again and knocked the lion over, but it immediately got back up and continued charging. A third shot had no effect. Patterson, realizing the lion will not cease and eventually reach him, retreated to a nearby tree. From the tree, Patterson fired one final shot at the wounded lion. Patterson got down from the tree and approached the lion, but again the lion got up and tried to attack. 2 more shots were fired, and it finally succumbed to its wounds, just 5 yards from Patterson. The construction crew returned and finished the bridge in February 1899. The official death toll stood at 28, all Indian workers. Patterson gave several figures, overall claiming that there were 135 victims, which included African civilians. The exact number of people killed by the lions is unclear. There are several theories for the man-eating behaviours of the lions. This includes a possible outbreak of cattle plague in 1898, which devastated the lions' usual prey, forcing them to find alternative food sources. The Tsavo lions may have been accustomed to finding dead humans at the Tsavo River crossing. An alternative argument indicates that the first lion had a severely damaged tooth that would have compromised its ability to kill natural prey. However, this theory has been generally disregarded by the general public and Colonel Patterson himself. He personally disclaimed it, saying that he damaged that tooth with his rifle while the lion charged him one night, prompting it to flee. Studies indicate the lions ate humans as a supplement to other food, not as a last resort. Eating humans was probably an alternative to hunting or scavenging caused by dental disease and/or a limited number of prey. A 2017 study found that one of the lions had an infection at the root of his canine tooth, which made it hard for that particular lion to hunt. Lions normally use their jaws to grab prey like zebras and wildebeest and suffocate them. The exact reason behind the lion's behaviour may never be known, but the stories have stood the test of time. After 25 years as Patterson's floor rugs, the lion's skins were sold to the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, Illinois in 1924 for a sum of $5,000. The skins arrived at the museum in very poor condition. The lions were reconstructed and are now on permanent display along with their skulls. You can find the lions on display at this museum today.